What's up, dude? How you doing? We're GM. Um, I to start everything out, I always like to just kind of dive on into your introduction. So if you want to just start off by giving everyone that's tuning in a little deep dive into, well, it doesn't have to be deep, but an overview of who you are and what you've been up to, and then we will get on into everything.
Yeah, in a nutshell. Well, thanks for having me on, first of all.
Of course.
Beautiful morning here. I hope for you as well. It's always weird. I gotta make sure I look at the camera and not at you. My name is, by all intents and purposes, Kisher, Chris Kish. I'm doxxed, so it doesn't really matter. Um, but I am a Web3 creative director full time these days. And, I cut my teeth in advertising, psychology, design back in college and did portfolio school. Studied abroad in Australia for some design, did a little comp sci, computer engineering, studied that again during the pandemic. So I have my hands in a lot of pies. I'm kind of all over the place, which is why I really like doing what I do because it keeps me learning new stuff every day. So now you can find me full time working, like I said, as a creative director for a company called Blockpax and working on a number of really cool products, specifically some digital collectible adventure games and some new collectible card games. Um, and so diving full on into my childhood because I used to play Magic and Pokemon, and now I get to build stuff just like it. So it's been an awesome journey, man.
Dude, that's awesome. I'm only, I mean, I'm only partially familiar with all of that. Blockpacks came across my radar, and I'm not 100% sure why or how. Um, but maybe that's a good place to start. What is Blockpacks?
Yeah, so Blockpax is a digital collectible gaming company, adventure gaming company. Um, it's started by this guy named Frenchie,
Hmm.
Frenchie on Twitter, and he's just one of those guys who, serial entrepreneur, has had his hands in every, Web one, Web two, Web three, and just really great at creating incredible products. And so Blockpacks is this idea of kind of fusing Web 2 physical collectibles with Web 3 technology and ethos. And it started with what was called the RAS. And what you would do is you'd essentially buy, kind of like packs, and you'd get like a token that was, one out of 2,500 ownership of a piece of a physical product, like a Kobe rookie card PSA.
Yep.
And every day, half those tokens would be burned. So you basically were in a sweepstakes to try and end up with that last token. And if you ended with that last token after all the rest were burned, then you would own the underlying asset. So it was a really cool way to kind of meld these two, but it was also really complicated. So it's evolved over the last couple of years. Now we really focus on digital collectibles with a physical flair. So we have a number of different products and projects. One being the more sports themed stuff. So we still have all the physical collectibles you can do, but there's Home Team Heroes, which is a sports product. They have we just launched Bantam Brigade, which is part of our Barefoot Republic project, and that's more focused like you can think of it more like a Pokemon style world.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
And then, we have Wonders of the First, which is what I'm actively building. We just had a reveal for our community of some of the work last week. And that's going to be more of like a Magic the Gathering style CCG. Um, and there's a bunch of other stuff, which, we can get into. But yeah, it's just like it fits me perfectly because they have like so much stuff going on
Yeah.
that like on any given day I'm working on, building out rum or a clothing company or a trading card game or, this or that. And so it's great.
Yeah. No,
A lot, I know.
that I, it is a lot, but I resonated with what you said early on when you were kind of giving your introduction of that you like to constant. I think you said something along the lines of like you like to constantly be learning new things, and I'm the same way, which is probably why I love doing this podcast. Is I get to learn all kinds of new stuff every week. But I could see how that would, at least for somebody with a personality like yourself or myself, that would really lend itself to being able to kind of put your creativity out there, but be able to like bounce between different projects. Like almost, at least for me, I feel like that would like allow me to constantly be like evolving my creativity instead of just like kind of being tunnel vision into one thing. Um,
They say creativity is really just amalgamations of what already exists into new ways and new forms, right? So
mhm.
there is no new ideas. I'm sure you've heard, right? It's
Yeah.
just the synthesis of old put together. So it's like everything that I've done informs everything else, right? And so it's like I started training parkour at 35 years old.
That's
Because
awesome.
I like the challenge, but also there's ways that parkour makes me think about the world in which I never would have thought about the world, and so that's lending new insights. I do photography at music festivals, and so those conversations lend new insights. And so yeah, I mean, if you're like me, the kind of Renaissance, like your hands in a lot of pies, the old Web 2 jobs of doing the same thing, clocking in, clocking out every day, just like
Yeah.
it's the worst.
That's exactly what I've been working on getting away from for the last, it seems like 10 years probably, is just like that is the worst. Just clocking in, clocking out, always doing the same thing every day. That's probably why I've gone through quite a few jobs over the last 10 or so years. So,
I have a
um,
running joke with a friend of mine. He just got hired as he's running Apple Music's partnership. He's like the VP of partnership there, and I talked to him the other day, and he's like, "Oh man, I gotta create this pitch deck for this new thing that we're doing." I'm like, "Dude, you are an executive at Apple, and no matter what you say, you will always be building decks."
yeah, it's 100%.
Just part of it.
Yeah, it's always, I mean, when you're in that business anyways, that's always going to be part of it. Um, okay, now my mind just keeps circling back to how did you end up training, or is that what you would call it, training parkour?
Mm. So during the pandemic, I've always been really active, and obviously there wasn't much to do with gyms and such. And
Mm-hmm.
I was just consuming YouTube at a ferocious rate, and I stumbled upon this YouTube channel called Storer, and it's this team of parkour athletes out of the UK, and they have this documentary called Street Culture Asia and a Roof Culture Asia, and it's essentially an hour and a half of them. They took a trip to Asia. They did like Hong Kong, Kyoto, Shanghai, found the tallest buildings they could find, and they just were doing parkour at height, over death drops of 80 stories.
Uh-huh.
And just this lifestyle and the way they presented it, and the art direction of the film itself, and the grittiness of it, man, it just was like, I don't want to do that, but I want to be able to move when I'm older, and I want to continue this creative way of movement. And man, it just so enamored me that these kids were able to move in this way, that I was like, you know what, let's give it a shot. And there's a place called Tempest Free Running here in the Valley in LA, and they have a number of professionals who train there. So I take classes and do some private lessons or training with a guy named Nate Weston, who's one of the top in the world, and
Okay.
it's a blast, man.
Yeah, that's super cool. I've recently, I mean, like super recently, just started getting into, I always blank on the name. I think it's calisthenics, calisthenics, like handstands and all that kind of, like, or at least working towards being able to do all that kind of stuff. And I wonder if that kind of like training would probably play a pretty,
Tons,
yeah, yeah.
tons. Yeah, a lot of the athletes in parkour are more calisthenically trained, just because calisthenics is, in my opinion, more about discipline over muscle movement.
Mm.
And so it's those slow, really in like kind of just fine
Yeah.
as opposed to powerlifting or cardio where it's just more fast twitch or those types of things. But I think the biggest thing I love about parkour, honestly, is, and maybe you've been seeing this in calisthenics as you get better and you can do more, is that I look at the world as a playground now. So instead of a curb and a wall and another wall, it's like, okay, well, that is actually a setup for a stride, to a precision, to a vault landing. And so
Uh-huh.
the world becomes a playground in a way that it never has before. And that in itself is a creative endeavor, which I love.
Totally. No, that makes a lot of sense. And now now I feel like I'm now like thinking like, oh, maybe I should also be kind of looking into the parkour stuff. I've always like known of parkour, and like you see videos of parkour stuff every once in a while if you're scrolling through wherever you're scrolling, TikTok,
Everyone's seen The
Instagram,
Office.
and of course The Office always pops into my head whenever I hear parkour. But like I had a I like the idea, and like what how you're kind of talking about it as like everywhere you go now becomes almost like a playground, and I feel like that's something that's super lacking in the in this day and age. Is not enough people play like throughout their day-to-day lives, and that's unfortunate. And I feel like things like it, and not enough people really work out in general, enough, so like finding a way to kind of meld the two together almost seems like a magic, like life hack almost to
It's been the best thing for me, and I have a longer journey with health. When I was younger, I was nearly 300 pounds, and so I've done a lot. But what you said couldn't be more truer. Is like there isn't enough play in this world, and
Mhm.
if people do go work out, I would say 75% is an assumption. Probably don't see it as play anyway.
Right,
I
right.
have a lot of fun. It's hard fun, but it's a lot, in the gym. And so, man, if we could spend an entire 2 hours talking about play.
Right, yeah. Which I mean, that's kind of like if to kind of segue back to Blockpax and
Yeah.
the card games and stuff. Like that's kind of obviously it's not a physical activity as much as mental and just fun. But what are some of the, I guess, like games that you guys are creating? I think you mentioned, was it Barefoot Republic or something? Or yeah,
So I'll do the big three because there's really
yeah.
three kind of big products that we're launching or have started launching over the last 6 months or so, and will continue to be kind of our flagship product lines. And the first one I mentioned is Home Team Heroes, and so that's for like our sports collectors and sports enthusiasts. People who, it is kind of, think of it like collecting meets fantasy sports. So
Okay.
we have the story is that these massive fans were at sports games all over the country, and there's an evil cabal of evil refs and mascots who put radioactive hot dogs into the stadiums, and so these fans ate these radioactive hot dogs, and they mutated into their what was their superheroes, and so they get to choose. They're inspired by their favorite superhero athlete, right? So you have guys that are inspired by LeBron and Shohei Ohtani, who just got injured, but all the big superstar athletes. So you rip packs of cards and you get to see these superheroes, and there are rare hits, and if you hit those rare hits, you get rewarded for how the player does in real life. So if you hold the card, not only is the card worth a lot of money, there's bounties for some of these cards up to 50 grand, which is
Dang.
insane. But yeah, you get rewarded in our ecosystem token, which is BPX, and so you get if they do well, you do well, which is awesome. So that's Home Team Heroes. And that just debuted really big at the National Card Convention, National Sports Card
Oh yeah.
in Chicago.
Yeah.
So that was a big activation. Gary Vee was there with V Friends.
Yep.
Cool to see them. Bantam Brigade is the next one. That one came out earlier this year that, like I mentioned earlier, is like more of our Pokemon style, so it's a lot more family friendly. That is a collectible card game or trading card game, and it's based on game mechanics that our founder created, kind of an amalgamation of war meets um, war meets rock paper scissors. It's the most basic simple form. But what's really cool about this is that we're actually I work as another project, or am part of another project called Other Guild, which is a whole other thing. But through that, I got to meet a man named Brian Tinsman, who's on the project team there, and he was one of the original lead game designers, lead game mechanic designers for Wizards of the Coast in the late
Okay.
1990s, early 2000s. So he built the cards literally that I was playing with as a kid in the heyday of trading card games in the late 90s. So
Right.
he's actually helping me build the game mechanics for Bantam Brigade and what will in Wonders of the First, which is the next one we'll be talking about. So that in itself is like full circle internal child.
Right.
Happy. Like,
Yeah.
it's incredible. So I get to go through the process with him on how to actually build out, um, you know, a set of cards. So that's been absolutely incredible. That one was originally supposed to be tied to the other side. So all the characters were kind of inspired by other deeds.
Okay.
And if you held those cards, you will get rewarded in the drip of resource token or whatever that it ends up being that
Mm-hmm.
they announce for holding those cards as well. And there's going to be physical tournaments and all that kind of stuff. We're working on a digital game for that. So that's a whole other project that's part of a Barefoot Republic. There's rum, there's clothing, there's all sorts of really cool stuff involved in that. So that's like number two. Yeah, and then the third thing is Wonders of the First, which has basically sucked up my entire summer and every weekend this year, and was the reason I didn't go to Burning Man for the first time in 8 years. But
Which is probably a good thing.
it was.
From what I saw. From what I
Super
saw.
FOMO first half of the
Yeah. Yeah.
exceptionally not so at the end.
Yeah.
But Wonders of the First is a really, really cool project born out of the merge of Ethereum from proof of work to proof of stake last year. And
Okay.
our dev team was able to figure out how, based on whatever smart things that they do over there,
Yep.
they figured out when the very last contract was going to be, the very last block of Ethereum proof of work was going to happen. So they were able to mint the very last contract of proof of work, and that ended up becoming what's called the lost miners. No utility that just exists, kind of like our provenance, like punks.
Okay. Yep.
Punks. So we have that project, and that was the last contract proof of work. But because we minted the last contract there, we were able to know when the first block of proof of stake was. So we ended up minting the very first contract, very first 10,000 tokens, and actually the second 10,000 tokens because we own the second block too, of proof of stake Ethereum. So Wonders of the First is a collectible card game, more like Magic the Gathering, and it is going to be built off the first, starting with token number 0 for proof of stake Ethereum. And there's an entire world that we've built with orbital realms and characters, and it's we're starting with 5,000 unique one-of-one pieces of art that will continue to expand. And so the digital side will be kind of like the art proofs, and then we'll be printing physical cards, like Magic the Gathering, and you'll be able to rip the cards and play them. And if you hold the art proof, we're hoping that that'll be provenance. You get to own that while everybody else plays with the art that you own.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a whole other thing too, and that's actually just being launched. We just, like I said, on Friday of last week, revealed the start of that universe to our community.
That's cool. That's why I mean you said it probably better than I'm gonna say it, but how the big brain devs on the team were able to figure out when that last contract would be available, and then when that first one for the proof of stake would, and taking advantage of it, because I think that's a cool. I mean, I don't know if people are gonna care a bunch about it in the future, but you never know, and it's cool to just be able to say that you are the first or the last or both in your guys's situation.
Historically, it proves usually that
Yeah,
it's a good thing, right? And for me personally, it's just like, yo, my art is going to live as token number zero,
right.
as long as Ethereum proof of stake, stake is there. So whoever might own it, that's still going to be the art that I created. And the team, obviously, I'm working with, it's not me by myself, but man, that's so cool.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just really cool.
yeah. It's wild, and I mean, I'm trying to unpack everything that we just touched on in my head. Um, maybe we'll work backwards since we're on this one. So
That's probably good.
with now I'm blanking on the name. What was Wonders of the First. So this is gonna be more of a Magic style trading card game. I guess okay, here's something that popped in my head while you were kind of explaining all of this, and I've noticed a trend of all of these different trading card games kind of coming to fruition over the last couple months specifically, maybe longer. But now like they're really starting to ramp up like just like a few of
Meta going around.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I totally see that.
Why do you think that is? And do you think that that's good or bad? I don't know if they're or neither. But I mean, because it does seem like there's a lot to choose from, but maybe that's normal. I've never been a trading card game player myself. I liked Pokemon. Like growing up, I was probably in the age where I didn't really care about the gameplay or anything. I was just collecting because I liked the different looks of the cards, and then I got into the Game Boy game, and then like playing the Game Boy game and then going and finding the cards that I liked was kind of how I approached that style of stuff. And I knew people that played Magic, but I never really got into that. So I guess I have no idea, but there must be tons of trading card games out there. So maybe my question, I'm answering it as I go.
I mean,
But
it's a good question because it really just depends on how, what lens you're looking at it through. From just a user out in the world, as someone who plays trading card games, I think the more options, the better, and you can kind of find what works for you and what style and art you like to play and what culture fits. Because there's Dragon Ball Z and Yu-Gi-Oh and One Piece has something out, Hearthstone, and then you got the digital stuff like Marvel Snap, which I'm fully addicted to, and that's a digital only. That took 4 years to develop, and that is the number one trading card game. It's one of the top games in the App Store, I believe, across all games. And to your point, there are, and then as someone who's building them and who sees the competition, it's like, well, one thing is that it's good because there's just more eyes on trading card games in general. So
sure.
there's more. It's just out there. And I think because the nostalgia factor, I think the pandemic really brought to the forefront of like, oh, Pokemon cards are worth some money. Let me bust them out. Oh, I remember why I really like to collect and to play. And so people are like looking and feeling those feelings again when they were kids. And then they're like, well, maybe I'll bust out my old deck. Maybe I'll see if anybody else has some. So it's like this, slow drip back into childhood,
Right.
and I think people are really we're seeing that across a lot of verticals, not just gaming
Hmm.
and TCG, but there has been a lot of V Friends. I think Deadfellas just put out a
Dead fellas, yeah.
there's
Parallel.
talk that Legends of the Mara was going to be some sort of card game style thing. Then there was what is it? Ravnica is the new Disney one. Disney just launched
Oh
one.
yeah, I did see Disney launched one, yeah. And Parallel is one that I've tried out that
Yeah,
is fairly new.
and then of course you had Magic the Gathering back in the news because they had the Lord of the Rings. and they had the One Ring.
The One Ring, yeah.
And up until Post Malone bought it for 2.8 million, the highest Magic the Gathering sale ever was only 800,000. So he blew it out of the water. But and so those are the types of things that people are seeing, and they're like, wow, there's a lot of money here. But also, it's like once they come in and they see what it's like, it's just a lot of fun to go back and play cards.
Right. Yeah. No, that does make sense that nostalgia kind of kicked in once people started kind of digging into it during the pandemic. I mean, it's kind of when it all started to seem like it started to happen, and then you start thinking like, oh, I did really enjoy doing this, and now all of us that were in that age range of playing with our friends and probably spending our parents' money. Now we have our own money to spend on fun things like that. So I could see like why it's really starting to snowball into something. Um,
I joke with my parents because they always gave me a lot of hassle when I was older. Like, oh, we spent so much money on Pokemon, blah blah blah. And now it's funny because I go home and I'm like, aren't you glad you spent all that money on Pokemon? Because it's making me now, it's now my career.
right.
And so it's paying the bills, mom and dad, and it's all because of you. So big flowers to mom and dad, and to all the mom and dads out there. Take your kids out to game shops. Look for video
Totally. Yeah. Whatever your kids are interested in, let them be interested in it, and you never know where it's gonna go.
I mean, I started collecting these comic books. I was a big X-Men fan, so comic books I started collecting because of all of the nostalgia.
Uh-huh.
So I'm into all of it.
That's awesome. Okay, now I guess for people listening, this is for you. What if somebody, let's like touch on all three because I think you kind of did, but so for um I'm horrible with names and I don't have my notebook. Usually I write things down so that I can remember, but for Wonders of the First, right?
Mm-hmm.
For Wonders of the First, that's kind of like a Magic the Gathering style game, is what you said. Um, for those of you that don't know what that is, like what could somebody expect for playing play style?
For play style, so you know what? I'm gonna give you guys a little alpha here.
Ooh, I love Alpha on the show.
So maybe I'll just pull out the game mat. It's the one that has all my notes on it. So there's the battle arena for this is for Phantom Brigade. But you can kind of see the play mat there. So
Uh-huh.
cards, and you have a deck, and essentially, you can expect every card has a power, and you play against the other power. And in its most basic form, it's kind of like war. Um, but the one that we're developing with Brian from Wizard of the Coast, who I mentioned earlier, um, there'll be abilities. You'll be able to have items and artifacts that you can play.
Hmm.
So very it's turn-based, 7 turns, and you're battling head to head.
Is that is that typical? Again, I'm a total noob when it comes to trading card games, but I mentioned that I tried out the parallel game, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't know what to expect because again, I hadn't really played, and like I enjoy that like turn-based. You kind of it's kind of hard to figure out what all of your different cards do, but but I guess you learn as you go.
Right.
Is that a pretty standard way of trading? Like, is that almost how all trading cards game is turn-based, or is
Pretty much. I
yeah,
mean, it's yeah, it's a little bit more difficult, especially in real life, to have just kind of a free for all
right,
situation.
yeah,
Where Pokemon, you have you have one versus one Pokemon, right? It's the one that's active.
yep,
And Magic the Gathering is on the other side of the spectrum, where you have any number of creatures. There's no set limit, and you declare who you attack, and you as the defender can defend with whatever creature or thing you want.
okay.
So it's from the very forced 1v1 to the very kind of open warfare of Magic the Gathering. Ours kind of fits somewhere in between.
Okay, so that's kind of the spectrum though, like 1v1 or
In
open.
my head, that's the way I see it. But
Yeah.
obviously, people who played other TCGs might have a different. But yeah, that's kind of my understanding. I see, where you really are just like the heads up versus the melee.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And then so um I'm really
You got
spacey.
Phantom
Yeah,
Brigade
Bantam
and
Brigade.
yeah,
So Bantam Brigade is more like Pokemon, like 1v1 style then?
yeah, same similar game mechanics, just the world itself. So like I showed you this game map here.
Yep.
If
And
you
that
want
had
to take a look at that.
7.
Yeah, but you also see just the style is more bright. Kind of, you see it's like it's got more of that like fun anime
Yeah.
style. So that's more of the feeling of Bantam Brigade. In fact, the cards are live. I just don't think I have any. BantamBrigade.xyz. If you want to go check out the card.
Perfect.
But the gameplay is similar. Conceptually, the difference is that Bantam Brigade is, instead of your Bantams dying or being obliterated or, getting killed, they retire, they get benched, right? So it's a little bit more toned down, so to speak. It's like I
Sure.
said, it's more family friendly. It has more of that cutesy style to it. Um, Whereas Wonders of the First, you can be shredded about, obliterated. You can sacrifice different things. There's orcs and vampires and death shades, and so
All the
there's
stuff.
more of that Dungeons and Dragons. I have books here sitting here, Warhammer books.
Mm.
We took inspiration from everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool. And then on the other side of everything is then the sports, real world style stuff, and that's interesting to me. The fact that it takes what's happening in the real world and like applies it to the game. I think that's super cool. How does that? Maybe let's dive into that a little bit more. Like how does that kind of play out from like a player's perspective? So if you own the card that is tied to LeBron James, then whenever he's doing good, your card gets better. Is that the idea? Or
Something like that. So this one isn't necessarily a trading card game
mm,
where you're playing with game mechanics. This is more of just more of a collectible card game. So you're ripping the packs and collecting,
okay, okay.
and then just really enjoying the experience from there. So you can go and collect and trade. And for the collectors out there, you have what are known as rainbows. So you might have your common like gray card, but you would have like a blue parallel or an aqua parallel or a gold parallel, and those would be at 1 out of 10 or out of 99 or out of 199. So for the collectors out there, there's rarity tiers. It's the
Hmm.
same art, but just maybe a different border color
Gotcha.
and different rarity. So there's collectibles, and obviously those are being hotly traded, and everybody wants to collect their team. But it's more passive, and once you got your team together, so to speak, you really just get to sit there and enjoy watching your players kick some butt, then getting rewarded for it. And then you can take that and spend all of those rewards in our auction. So Blockpax just released their it's a native auction for BPX token. So once you
Okay.
get rewarded, you can go into our auctions, and there's live products auctions every week. You can use that BPX to buy. I mentioned rum and clothing from other projects and
Hmm.
stuff. So all the different things that we're doing across all product lines kind of center around this BPX token that you can use and buy real physical assets with.
Okay. I like that. That's cool. Like so you can do you are there ways to earn that BPX token in the other ecosystems too, or
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
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 it's across all of them. So that's really what ties all of
ties it all
together.
together.
Relying, is you can use say for Wonders of the First, for instance, and again this is probably some alpha, but what we're looking to do is when you mint the art token, you would have the opportunity to purchase a physical box of cards, the first edition set,
Okay.
and so you would be able to do that in BPX, for instance.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. or perhaps we do consignment stuff, so perhaps some community member puts up their Kobe rookie PSA 10. You can go in and bid on that gasless auction. So no
Nice.
fees, no gas. Um, yeah.
I feel like that's important now. Well, not, I mean, not as much nowadays, but once more people start using the
It adds up.
blockchain again, yeah, and I mean it adds up. Period.
Yeah.
No matter what and when. So yeah, I mean I was Rec League. Have you been paying attention to Rec League a little bit?
Peripherally,
Yeah,
I haven't played. I just couldn't. I didn't have the bandwidth to pick it up.
I thought I might, and then I ended up deciding not to. But so I picked up a couple of the boxes or crates or whatever they're talking about that had all the parts to build your mechs with, and then when I realized that I would have to, I don't know if you had to pay gas to open them or not, but then to assemble your mechs and then unassemble them, like every time you had to pay gas and
They
uh,
put it on ETH main
and it
chain.
was
What are you
on.
thinking?
I know that was like once it like everything like started clicking in my head, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna be paying like I've already paid more than I've ever paid to play almost any video game to get these boxes, and now I'm gonna have to pay like 30 to $50 depending on how busy it is to make these mechs, and then if I don't like it, I have to pay to. I was just like, okay, I'm done with this for right now. Hopefully they hopefully they can readjust and move it over to Polygon or wherever something that isn't mainnet.
I mean, that's been the challenge too, and just technically is like, how do you build a game that has hundreds of thousands of users, constantly interacting with your platform, and then where's the bridge to Web3 happen, right? Because all of that has to be on a layer 2 or native, and then there has to be very few times where you're actually pinging the blockchain, just because it's so expensive,
Right.
you know. Um, and on another note, to your point about pay to play, it's just I felt there's certain things happening in the ecosystem, and I kind of felt that way a little bit about heavy metal. It's just like everything you have to do in there is like you have to pay to upgrade or wait.
Or wait a long time.
And I was so stoked when the Rift opened, and then the first time I got to play with something new and shiny, I had to wait half an hour to craft. And I was like, that's not a great experience.
uh,
You want people to be fluid, and you want to leverage and take advantage of the momentum of excitement. And so hopefully that's what we're doing.
I was gonna say hopefully people like yourselves and anyone else who's paying attention can kind of learn from these, in my opinion, mistakes that other companies are making that are really turning people off to the products that they've invested a lot of time and money into developing, because I'm the same way with heavy metal. I have one, and I was kind of grinding it and trying to get it ready for the Rift to open, and then like you said, once I got into the Rift and I was like, oh, it's another waiting game. It's just like I want to play your game. Like I don't want to just sit around and wait, and I also don't want to pay a bunch of money to play it as at the speed that I want to play it, because that's,
I've already put a bunch of money
yeah,
into
I've
it. It's the
already
best game I've ever played.
exactly like
And so I'm sitting here as a creator and just seeing these different things. And to your point, it's like, um, you know, there's larger conversations happening, and I'm happy to have them. Where it's like, yeah, they're mistakes, but they're also learning experiences. Us at Blockpax, we're not as visible as Yuga, in terms of like the Web3, but like we've had to pivot and make apologies and say, oh, we're delayed too. It's just Web3 is a very challenging space, and I think a lot of projects that didn't understand how to do business are now have
hmm
under the bridge. And so we're seeing the people that are still around are actually serial entrepreneurs, business managers, people who actually understand the fundamentals of sustainable, you know, fundamentals.
right.
I'm learning it too. It's not where I come from, but I'm seeing how important it is. And so I understand what Yuga is doing in terms of, they're trying to create a sustainable business that may eventually one day go public. And I'm also building games and a gamer, and I want certain things, and like I'm not seeing it being delivered. So what I would love to see, just in general, is I want Yuga to keep building. I would love for them, but I also want other companies to be folded into the conversation. And I think a large part of that is on the community. to embrace more of these underdog companies and projects that are not in competition to Yuga, but when the tide rises, all the ships rise together. So let's get
Right.
more ideas into the mix. Let's not leave it all on Yuga's shoulders, because man, if they, God forbid, shit the bed and fold, like that's the space.
Right.
Pretty
Yeah.
much,
Pretty much.
so it's just like that would be, a death knell for a lot of people. And so I don't want all that pressure on them.
Mm-mm.
And I would rather bear the load and create something kick ass across a lot of different verticals.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes a lot of sense what you're saying, and yeah, I mean it really it shouldn't be on one team's shoulders, right? Like that's just not the way that like I don't understand how it ended up being that. I don't know if it maybe partially because a lot of this space is, and this is just me spitballing, but a lot of this space is people that are interested in making money and making investment decisions and not so much really caring about the other stuff that's being built, like for the stuff that I'm interested in gaming. It doesn't seem like there's a ton of gamers that are focused on this space. And obviously, if you pay attention to the wider gaming ecosystem, a lot of them are very much against this space for reasons that I don't quite understand or agree with. I think it's more so just they're all kind of jumping on the bandwagon of hating something. Um,
The
but
Creators League drama was really interesting.
that was very interesting. Um, and I don't I don't know. It's a strange place to be because like I said, I'm very interested in the gaming and how gaming can kind of interact with this Web3 blockchain technology, and it does seem like it's here to make things better. But it it also seems like the some of the games that are coming out that should be the ones that are showing how things are done or can be done are kind of dropping the ball and making these experiences that really like an actual person that is a gamer doesn't want to play. And
Right.
I think that's unfortunate. But
I was watching. There's a show on I think Paramount Plus called Gamers, and it's a
okay.
mockumentary about a pro esports gaming team. And it's so well done. I actually watched the first couple episodes and thought it was a real documentary. But it's based around League of Legends, and like those guys are pro, man. They spent 18 to 20 hours playing, and it's like we need to be able to have enough um, excitement in our games to be able to keep people around who are grinding to that level
Hmm.
and make it fun to watch. It's one thing to play heavy metal, but then the people who tried to stream it, Jesus,
Mm.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I
and
thought about it for a second until I played it and I was like, oh.
how long can you really watch that for? So, yeah, I agree. And obviously, I think there's a couple of things. I think Yuga was in the right place at the right time with Bored Apes.
Hmm.
Culturally, they became relevant, and so then they had the eyes, and then they had the investment at the time when investment was good.
Right.
So great. Um, but I think people are expecting too much too fast. And Marvel Snap took 4 years, and that's a trading card game on digital.
Right.
People want a AAA experience using brand new technology, metaverse, Web3 tech. Like it's a lot to ask for. So in some ways, I have empathy for Yuga, but in other ways, like you probably shouldn't have sold Other Deed over a year ago.
This is very true.
So it's a balance, and so again, it's hard because I'm optimistically critical.
Yeah, yeah. Which is probably the best way to be in a space like this that's up and coming and developing every day. Um, what if you if you had to say, um, obviously from your own views and opinion, like what do you think could be done or should be done to kind of start pushing us towards a better future? one that gamers would actually enjoy and want to be a part of.
It's a great question.
Yeah,
Um,
put you on the spot too. It's probably
I
pretty
mean,
deep.
focus groups are great. I mean, I was yes, I focus groups is the community.
Hmm.
Web3 ethos, one of the pillars of Web3 is, is human centric and IP ownership, right? And community and finding your niche. So I think it starts with community, number one. I disliked seeing Yuga take a more corporate approach in the last few months, and the fact
Yeah.
that they've buttoned and tightened up their communications, and they've said they were going to be more communicative, but they haven't been.
No.
So their transparency is another pillar in Web3, and I don't believe that Yuga's been very transparent in what's going on with what they've been developing and where they're at. And I just think even if they just said like, "Yo, we are 5 months behind," like, great,
Right.
tell us.
Just tell us. Yeah.
I prefer you telling me you're 5 months behind than radio silence. So I think asking your community what they want, and then obviously it's your job to give them what they don't even know that they want yet.
Mm.
But Yuga has been pretty good at that so far, I think, in terms of just culturally. I think communication and transparency, and I think it's on the community also. I think this ethos of flipping bags and chasing the latest coin and trying to get rich quick, I think that conversation's kind of overpaced everything else in this space.
Yeah.
You have guys like CoffeeZilla, who have basically just trashed Web3 because of the players that happen to rise to the top or scumbags.
Hmm.
So I think there's a cultural conversation that we need to have as a community in terms of like, let's support the people who are actually building long term and the companies, Yuga and others, and this bullshit, quick pump and dump type of stuff to get rich quick, like, has to go.
Right.
You can't have both.
Not sustainably.
Not if you want the general public to show up. Not
Mm.
if you want, Johnny, who's 8 years old, to stop spending money on
Roblox.
Roblox. Yeah, and it's called Robux, right? That they
Robux. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So if we want Johnny to ask dad for 10 ape instead of 10 Robux, like, there's a big change that needs to happen. And I don't even think ape is really culturally directed toward 10-year-olds. I just think the way that they communicate, like, their voice is just for an older audience anyway.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be also some more children's style stuff.
Definitely that, and because there really isn't. I mean, and
No dad's gonna take their son to fuck it Saturday.
yeah, exactly.
Like, it's not,
Exactly.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just the voice that Bored Ape has decided to speak in, and I guess that's more Bored Ape Yacht Club brand than it is Yuga's brand,
Sure.
right? But it is still, it creeps in, even in first and second trip, just the way that, the, what's his name, Blue and Curtis.
Curtis. Yeah.
Like, it's vulgar. So, I think that also plays into.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. I mean, they obviously know their audience that they have right now, but like figuring out how to expand outside of that audience is what needs to happen. Otherwise, it's just gonna continue to be this very small, secluded group that, I mean, it's not gonna go anywhere if that's all that it is.
Yeah, we've been having this conversation. I'm sure. Have you been following the AIP, the ApeCoin DAO?
Yeah.
And there's the proposal to buy, like 11 million.
11 million or more than that or whatever. Yeah.
I don't own any of those assets, so to me, I've just been peripherally paying attention to it. But to the point what we're talking about, it's like, use that money to bring in new money and investment. Stop recirculating what's already here, because essentially, again, it's just we're just recycling right now.
Yeah.
And so that 11 million is already in the ecosystem, and it's just going to stay in the ecosystem. And yeah, you might have a Bored Ape at the Louvre or whatever, but like, I've never gone to an art museum and come out saying, oh, I gotta make sure I get that Picasso,
All right.
or whatever. It's like it's not going to make you. It's not going to make the general person want to go buy a Bored Ape.
No.
Use that money for marketing. Like, go find a
Marketing,
marketing
100%.
agency who's going to, break the mold, and like that's what I think they should have done with that money.
Yeah, I there's a lot of things going on in that ecosystem that just baffle me, and I I, I like this one for example that we're talking about. Like I don't know like tokenomics. Like I'm not like big into that. I don't understand what exactly the goal of all of this is, but like from an outsider like overview perspective, it really feels like that one specifically is very much just intended to help the people that are already here. And I don't understand like how that is a good use of that, especially that much money. I don't know. It's just we don't have to get into that, but
No,
it's
I know what you mean. And I mean, for some people, it's exit liquidity.
exactly. Well, that's what I see it
That's what I'm
as.
worried about.
Yeah, exactly. It's like what happens after everyone takes advantage of this and leaves with their money? Like what happens next?
Right.
I don't know.
So yeah, and again, it's like there's so many people who are so bullish on the space, and I'm bullish on the space, and I'm bullish on the tech, but it's not going to be where we're at now. I believe personally that once the Web3 technology that we have, that we're using, blockchain, and all this great stuff, is in the background of the products that we're using, that's really when we're going to see things start to take off. It's just like with the internet. It's just like with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and all these great things. It's like you don't have to log into your personally encrypted channel and type in, your cipher to get into your Wi-Fi or Bluetooth.
Right.
You walk into a room and you're connected,
And you're connected, yeah.
and it just happens in the background. And maybe your hue lights populate, because so like that's where we need to get to with some of this tech. We're just not there yet.
Yeah, yeah. And who knows how long it'll take to get there. Um, I imagine it'll be faster than a lot of us probably anticipate, but
I think it will be.
I don't know. It seems like things over just the last 3 years that I've been paying attention to, things have made leaps and bounds past where I first started, and like being just the onboarding of a new person into the space has gotten drastically easier. It still has a ways to go, but it's definitely making progress.
Imagine the first bank that ties your checking account to to a crypto wallet, right? And so
Hmm.
when you're paying for anything, you can just plug in your bank details, and on the back end, it's choosing whatever USD, USDC,
Hmm.
and it does all that on the back end. No, going to Uniswap to change to a token and paying for that gas and then swapping into another wallet. Like all that is going to be seamless on the back end at some point. And so like
And
that's the kind of stuff that I'm hoping to see
right.
eventually.
Yeah, because once that happens, one, I'll be happy. Then it'll make my life easier, and that's I mean that's the goal, make it easier, because then people will adopt it. That's I mean that's how like I just started thinking about this when we were talking about this portion of the conversation. Like social media platforms, they they were they've they've grown like Facebook, Twitter, all that. Like they were growing audience, but then it seems like they really started to take off when like mobile phones became what they are today, where it is like a computer in your pocket and you can actually do all that stuff seamlessly, and like you said, it connects to Wi-Fi when you walk into a room that has Wi-Fi that you've connected to, and it's just like that's when things really started to take off, is when it was super easy for my dad to use it and not have to think about it, and like that's what we need to get to with this technology.
Yeah, it's like, what made social media take off, like to your point, mobile phone is like social media is about sharing your life as it happens with your friends, right?
Hmm.
And that was not able to happen when you were experiencing life and then had to wait to get home and then dial up modem and then share your experience. You were so far out of the experience, probably couldn't even
Right.
Whereas when you're at the festival watching your favorite artist, phone is streaming and you're living that experience as you share it simultaneously. Like that's really where social media like was able to really be social media.
Right. Right.
Obviously, that's come with a whole bunch of shit.
Exactly.
It's like, what is that thing for Web3? Like, what is that one core thing where it's like as soon as that tech is unlocked, it spreads like a virus,
What is that? That's the magic question.
right?
Um,
Someone's gonna come up with
I,
it.
I was gonna say we'll know whenever somebody comes up with it, but
Sure, it's just not gonna be friend tech.
yeah, don't get me started on friend tech. Um,
It's another one I stayed away from.
yeah, same. I mean, I've stayed away from almost everything recently, but it's to my detriment sometimes, but also positives whenever I avoid the stupid stuff. But um, I don't know. Yeah, yeah.
What's the latest project you've been checking out? Like, what are you really excited about in the space right now, outside of maybe like the top names?
That is a good question. I feel like honestly, like I've been so consumed, unfortunately, with like what Yuga is doing because they always are popping up on your radar and they're teasing that something else is coming and so like and I've always been like a step out of the Yuga ecosystem. Like heavy metal was the first thing I ever bought inside of their ecosystem, even though like I had chances. I definitely dropped the ball on not minting board apes or picking up some board apes on secondary. Like I remember seeing them at like point 0.3 and I was like I don't understand why you would want one for I don't know what it was like $400 at the time. And yeah, but
It reminds me of hearing about Mt. Gox and Bitcoin in 2012 and just being like, it's not going to be anything.
and you don't know until you know, right? Um, but so like I've started to, and probably not worth the time that I put into it, but I've started to like really dive into all the different things that are going on in this other side. I'm excited for other side. I think other side's going to be cool. Just from what I've seen of all the different tests that they've done, I think like the what they're working towards is going to be cool. Who knows when we'll get to a point where it actually is what we want it to be. But so I've been like trying to like figure out like all of the other things that are kind of tied into it. Um, and and to be honest, like kind of what we touched on earlier, I've kind of lost interest because of doing this deep dive into everything because it just seems like everything is you just have to spend more money to to do almost nothing, and it's not fun. I don't know. So, I,
I know it's exasperating.
yeah,
Like that sigh really encompassed a lot. And, it's you can't do it all. I think that's the one thing I've learned in Web3 is like I can't be a part of everything, and there are people who play and post and are on crypto Twitter every day, and that's great. But at the end of the day, like if we want to build, you can play what looks like fun, and or if something's doing something really really new. I mean, that's really the only reason I got into Dookie Dash was because it was like, okay, here's the first real attempt at Web3 gaming.
right.
To me, that's a write off. Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? It became a legitimate write off. It's like that's research. Um,
it's true.
so yeah, I paid for money, but like to your point, I think we just I'm still bullish on the other side. There's a lot happening right
Hmm.
now, especially LOTMs starting to release. There's a lot of seemingly some drama on the back end. It sounds like
Hmm.
rumblings of some shakeups with partners and such, which is unfortunate. Um, but other side really is going to be the litmus test for what Web3 is capable of.
Mm,
So part of me is like, great, take as much time as you need and get it right. And
right, right.
part of me is like, fuck, when?
Yeah.
Lower my other deed's gonna go. Like, give me something to do with my other deed. And if not, like, support some of the communities that are working to support you. And I think again that goes back to this community thing. Is like, yeah, for those that don't know, I'm the founder of Other Guild. We're the number one, or we're the first guild for Otherside, and really one of the first Web3 guilds to exist in this space. And we started the week of the other Deep Mint, and we have been in heavy metal and working to do some stuff with Rec League, but they didn't do wallet delegation for some reason. And so we're looking at it as like, well, what's our space here? How can we support Otherside and keep the lore and the story going? And we would wish that like Yuga or Otherside would be like, hey guys, like we see you, you know, just a little like wink and a nod or
Right.
something.
Right.
It's just like, I know we're not the only ones that are struggling to maintain building something in the Otherside L2 space. There's a lot of people struggling, and it doesn't seem like you guys really interested in like supporting the content creators for Otherside at this time.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because I mean, that's what's gonna help grow and get it out to the more of the masses is those content creators and people that are forming groups and guilds and stuff like that around that ecosystem or any ecosystem. I mean, I for the better part of my time here, I was really excited about the sandbox, and I still am excited about the sandbox. I think it has big potential to be fun and get a lot of users excited about it, but it's just like with everything, and other side like is in the same situation, is like it's taking so much time, and I don't understand now, like looking back, like why things like land and other deeds were released when they were, when there was like no no uh, future in sight for like what you could actually do with those. And like so I think a lot of people really lost that excitement of anticipation for what they were going to be able to do inside of these different platforms. And me included, I'm starting to see life start to spark back into the sandbox, which is exciting. But also, with all of like they basically have gotten to the point where publishing onto your land and allowing people to come and play games that you've built on your land in the sandbox is doable. But like it seems like it's been too long now that people don't really care. There's not a lot of people playing the games that are being released onto the land, which I mean is the whole point uh, of their platform. So um, I don't know. It's kind of a tough time. I mean, obviously, like markets have been down, so a lot of people probably left because of the hype dying down and everything. But it's like I don't know, I don't know what is going to spark life back into this space, uh, and that that's been my kind of like struggle to wrap my head around, like what needs to happen to get things to be fun again here.
I mean, it could be what we're going through now. It could be just this like weeding out of the bullshit, right?
Hmm.
It is to a point where like if you really aren't working on something that is sustainable, or a project or a community that is sustainable, or working on onboarding new community that's outside of Web3 currently, or like you're just not going to make it, just because you're not going to have the runway for funding, if you can't figure it out. So I think, unfortunately, it's like we're seeing a little bit of like the resilient are going to make it.
Hmm.
How much longer? I don't know. I still think we're in the pre-internet bubble of Web3, personally. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
hopefully it's over soon. But like, I think about the social media space pre-Facebook. Zynga and MySpace and AOL, to some extent, ASL, if
Yeah.
you remember.
Yeah.
Those were all forms of social media blossoming. So it was there, but Facebook took it into Web 2. So it's just, again, it's back to that. What is that one idea
Right.
that's going to catch fire? So, my optimism is that we're only one good idea away from Web3 becoming relevant. Um, what I love about the space is that we're just outside of blockchain, we're in an emerging technology space,
Hmm.
right? And so if it's not blockchain, we're already understanding enough of technology to where we can be pretty native to whatever the new thing is. So I think whether it becomes AI or blockchain or some other form of emerging technology, a lot of the people we see here in Web3 are going to be in that space as well.
Right. Yeah. That does make sense because yeah, I mean that's why I'm here is I've always been interested in technology. Like growing up, I was always getting the newest iPods or whatever
You ever
else.
build your own
Like
computer?
I've attempted. I I I've never actually finished a build, but I have like started a few. I don't know. I that's how my brain works. I think I move on too quickly from things
You and my
sometimes.
friend are a true creative
Uh,
duo.
I mean, that's always what I think I've found is that yeah, I I could be a creative director, I feel like, to be honest. But
You get the idea started, and then
yeah,
you get the team to finish it off.
exactly. That's always what I run into is like I have a great idea. I assemble some sort of viable product and then it's like okay, but now I want to work on this, and it would be awesome to hand that off and be like okay, finish this and make it awesome. And I'll let you know what I think you could do to polish it or whatever. Um, but yeah, I don't know where I was going in with all of that, but I don't know. But I do want to circle back to other guild because I dabbled in well, I shouldn't say I dabbled. I lurked in the Discord here and there throughout the last like 6 months or so, and it seems like you guys are doing awesome stuff. I think guilds are going to be super important and super cool to kind of see what is all possible, especially with like the new technology, um, being able to like integrate and delegate and all that fun stuff. What have you guys been doing or like experiencing with the guild and like where do you see the guild going, I guess?
So we see the guild going to be, I mean, really what we see other guild being is a space for creatives and builders who are building in metaverse and gaming, but also a place for gamers to come and find like-minded community, share insights, games, delegate wallets, play. And, the idea for other guild came because I used to play Counter-Strike on Steam when I was
Mm,
growing up, and there was some mods like digital paintball. And if you remember, they had like clan battles a lot of the times, and there was always like the top teams at the time would have their little names like Pwn the Noob
yeah.
or whatever,
Yeah.
or Gang Gang Clan or whatever. I don't know, whatever the clan name was. And I just remember like I tune in to watch these guys play because they were so good at Counter Strike. It's like, oh my god, how? And you always wanted to be on those teams and play in those matches. And so that's what I foresaw for Web3 was that would be a great thing to have. Like everybody
Hmm.
would want to be on other guilds team, right? Because we have the best players and the best creators and the best builders. So that's kind of what we're hoping to morph into is a place where both gamers and creators can come and play and that they're supporting each other, and the gamers are using what the creators build and the creators are getting paid by the people who are playing their games, and it's this really nice ecosystem that everyone is winning. And at the end of the day, it's like we've seen a lot of other guilds and things pop up since we've been here, and um, we're just kind of waiting to see what the space evolves into. It's hard to lay a framework for the future when we don't know what it's going to be.
Right.
We've been doing stuff with, as it comes out for Rec League. Again, like I said, we were really bummed that the wallet delegation didn't pan out, because that was something that we had looked into having some teams for. But hopefully LOTM and Otherside will present some opportunities for us to really get that level of like gilding.
Mm-hmm.
Right now
Right.
it's diffuse a little bit. So
Yeah. Yeah. Have you guys been doing anything with heavy metal? I would imagine a little bit.
we've done some stuff with heavy. It's not so team oriented.
Right. Right.
It's like, we have the trading and those types of things, and there's people who are doing some. We had some really cool stuff. One guy, I have to go back and find his name now. Dante, I believe his name was something. He created this really cool heavy pal trading bot. Where you could put in how many votes you wanted, and it would automatically find your votes, and then you would do it. So that was really cool little idea that sparked up. And these other guys in heavy metal have some sort of script that they use for voting for their whole. So there's some of these little ideas that are percolating,
Mm-hmm.
scaled into something bigger.
Uh-oh. I think we lost you. I don't know if you can still hear me, but you fell off for a second.
Yeah.
There we go. You're back.
Cool. Yeah, I just lost you for a second. So what I was saying, just, we got little ideas percolating, and, we have a map for Otherside that we've built out that's really, I think, one of the best ones out there, filterable, searchable. And you can see that at map.otherguild.xyz, I believe is that, something like that. And so we have some other stuff, but again, it's just, it's tough. We have to kind of be flexible to what Yuga does.
Right. Which isn't always a great situation.
We're looking at other, expanding, right? Scaling up. We don't want to have our bags just all on, one platform. So it's like, what does it look like to be a larger Web3 gaming guild? What does that encompass? How do we get there?
Mm-hmm.
What do we need to do? So I think that's really where we're headed.
Are there any games or stuff that you guys have your eye on? I know you kind of asked me that earlier, and I just kind of tiptoed around it because honestly, there isn't much that I'm playing right now that I try things here and there and I just lose interest super quickly. But is there anything that you guys have found that you're interested in pursuing?
I'm not a very traditional video game player, not anymore. I just don't have the time.
Right.
Did buy a PS5, I wouldn't have time for this.
Same. I'm the same way.
There's not enough room. That's why I don't follow sports, and I don't have the bandwidth. Yeah, I don't know right now
Right.
out there that I'm like I said, I'm not following the traditional Web 2 gaming companies like Activision, Blizzard, and those types of things. I am assuming that they have something in the works. I'm hoping.
You would think.
But even there, didn't Epic just go through a big thing because they shit the bed with Overwatch?
Yeah,
They really didn't listen to they did a real capitalist type move where it's like subscription based gaming, and it's just like, man, that's not gonna win.
mm-mm.
How can you not see that?
Right.
So I don't know what it's gonna be. Fortnite has really great community, and they're doing really cool stuff with how they're involving the culture in the game itself.
For sure.
For concerts and characters. I think Roblox, I'm not native to that platform at all, but they've got something going on there that's working, even though I disagree with how they do how they treat their creators and how they pay them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually,
It's really bad.
And Fortnite, League of Legends. Like I said, I was watching that gamers show, and they're the biggest ones. They're doing esports right and they're filling stadiums with people who are there to watch pro teams who have millions of dollars. So whatever League of Legends has there, that is, there's something to be learned.
Definitely. League of Legends has always been one that I mean, I play League of Legends here and there, It's one that sometimes I have to uninstall off of my PC because otherwise I would play it too much.
You
And
know what's interesting? Sorry, go ahead, finish your thought.
well, it's just I always circle back to it, and and I don't really know why or what it like. I can't put my finger on like what it is that keeps me coming back, but I always come back to it, and you're right. It's something that they've figured something out, and people should be paying attention to that and figuring out what it is.
But it's not an easy game to fall into from outside that world.
Right.
Like I watched that whole season of the show. I actually went and started watching some live esports competitions for League of Legends because I was like, how do you even, what's this game? What is a laner or, like a high, like all these different words. And so like, interestingly that the learning curve is really high and you can't just
Uh-huh.
understand the game right away.
It's very high as far as
Yeah.
the learning
It's
curve
not
goes.
even like obviously there's the castle at the end, but there's other points and things that happen that can really change the game drastically. And so um, even with that, they're able to maintain and bring on tons of fans and people. So yeah, I don't know, whatever they're doing, maybe it's a good case study to be dissected for people in this community.
Definitely, because that's such a good point too. Like the learning curve's high for even just a beginner to start and figuring out and playing the game, and then the like spread of beginner to expert at the game is so wide, and like maybe that's why people really like watching it because they've kind of grasped the general concept of the game, but then whenever you watch the professionals playing it, they really have another level that they understand about the game, and that's probably why people enjoy watching the tournaments and stuff. But
I think you're probably right. Is there is a lot of strategy and there's a lot of, I mean, it's like football deep. Like you can see one
mhm,
thing and interpret it 100 different ways, and because there's not one or two solutions to the end game. I think that's what keeps people interested. There's a lot of intricacies.
intricacies, yeah, yeah, definitely. And there's so many different champions or characters that you can play as, so like that all adds more intricacies to it, and so many different style. Yeah, it's
We need a game like that where Bryson can have a team and Orangey can have a team,
right.
and like there's actual. It's like that. I think is what we're missing right now. A thing where we can actually see competition between some of our best gamers with eyes beyond Web3, where they can have a team, a setup that will actually allow them to be sustainable. Man, that could be it.
Yeah, yeah, I mean finding a way to, yeah, enable creators like Bryson and Orangey, and there's plenty more out there, but those are also the two that are maybe because they do dabble with Web3 stuff that they're on my radar mostly, um but yeah, finding a way to really enable those creators to form
Like Second Trip, man. How fun was Second Trip?
so fun.
Right? And
Yeah.
it wasn't even that the game was, like really hard to. You were just basically picking up coins, right?
Yeah.
But like it literally was only the fact that you were on a team, you were competing,
Hmm.
and you had someone as a team captain.
And you had a captain.
The entire
Yeah.
dynamic of it, and lean into that more.
Hmm.
That's my that's my takeaway from this second half of this conversation. I think that's really insightful.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, you touched on it earlier too, that like community and having teams, I think that's going to play a big role in whatever at least in the gaming ecosystem of Web3, to lead to success is going it's going to need both a large community and competitive team play, because I think we've moved. I mean, obviously, like there are people that like to play games solo and just game by themselves, but I think we've definitely moved into the era that most people want to be playing games with their friends, or or not friends, just people that they've been thrown into a lobby with or whatever. But like it's so much more fun to be competing against other people and not just the computer.
Or even
Um,
live streaming, right? It's a form of that. You know, you could be playing by yourself, but not really.
right. That is true. Live streaming like a single player game, like really changes it too. That's interesting. Um, well, I feel like we've covered a lot,
We have, man.
and
This has been a
it's
great conversation.
yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely have to get you back on here in the future and just see where the next conversation goes to. But I've definitely enjoyed chatting with you and getting to know you a little bit more. So, thank you so much for coming on. And I want to just give you the last little part of this to take the stage and shout out whatever you want to shout out. Let people know where they can follow and support and do all that fun stuff, and then we'll say goodbye.
Oh man, I feel like I rambled so much. Well, first of all, thank you, Crafter, for having me. It's epic conversation. Loved all the little corners we got to touch. My name is Kisher. Come follow me on Twitter, Kisher_ETH. You can check us out at Blockpax. I think it's just Blockpax on Twitter, but blockpax.com. You know, again, it's Home Team Heroes, Bantam Brigade, Wonders of the First. There's lots of really awesome stuff that you can check out in that ecosystem. And if you're a fan of the other side, come visit us at Other Guild. You know, we are it's the Other Guild on Twitter, and link in bio for Discord. So you know, come play with us as LOTM gets ready to unveil. And man, that's it. Thank you.
Heck
I
yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much again for coming on. And like I said, I look forward to the next conversation we have because I'm sure we'll dive into all kinds of different corners again, which is why I love this format of like a longer form conversation is you never know where it's gonna go, but it's always gonna end up somewhere fun and interesting. So, uh,
Yeah. Well, if you're ever in LA, we'll do it live.
hell yeah, that is one thing that I've been wanting to do more of. I've done one so far, and it really is a different dynamic. Like this works, but it's a different dynamic whenever you get in the same room with somebody and can really vibe and see what comes up that way. So definitely would love to do it whenever I'm in LA. I'll definitely hit you up. But yeah, thanks man for coming on, and you have a great rest of your day and we will chat next time.
Sounds great, man. Take care.
Cool. Yeah. Peace, dude.